Dear all, we are here for a new episode about appendiceal lesions. It seems that improving traction could improve your R0 resection rate for this kind of lesion. As you know, appendiceal neoplasia are classified following the Toyo-Nagase classification, depending on the relationship between the lesion and the orifice of the appendix, depending on how close it is from the orifice and then entering into the orifice with a margin or without any margin in this case. And in a study we did 5 or 6 years ago, we also described a different kind of lesion where you have a complete circumferential invasion of the orifice, but when you have an appendectomy, so you don't need to go very deep, because after you have the surgery staples or the surgery wires that are in the site of the previous appendectomy. We did a recent study, a relatively recent, in 2023 in gastrointestinal endoscopy with 112 patients, 56% of type 3 Toyo-Nagase lesion, 13% post-appendectomy. Almost all cases were performed with rubber band traction in a multi-center setting. The en-bloc resection rate was 86% and the R0 resection rate 80%. We had 14% of delayed surgery, 4.5% because of delayed perforation, 9% because of non-curative resection, and 1% because of appendicitis. It was not so satisfying, because 80% is not very good. About 5 patients needs to go to surgery because the resection is not complete, mainly because of an invasion of the deep margin into the appendix. And then we still are looking for better solutions in order to have a better rate of R0 resection with less surgery for non-curative resection. We use for this purpose the ATTRACT device, the adaptive traction device. The strategy is relatively similar to what we did before with conventional traction, but we have a multipolar traction on the oral and anal side of the lesion, fixed to the opposite wall of the cecum. And we begin the traction and do the ESD as much as possible all around the appendix. But when we reach the appendiceal area, we need a stronger traction, and then we can pull the ATTRACT device in order to create again a new traction and go deeper into the area of the appendix in order to be able to cut the mucosa of the appendix the more deeply we can, and then trying to get R0 resection. If we are not R0 in this case, after, surgeon can perform only an appendectomy, because the remaining lesion is only in the appendix and not in the cecum, so appendectomy is enough. Also, usually when you are lesion, you need an enlarged appendectomy or sometimes ileocecal resection. This is an example, a very short example of a lesion Toyo-Nagase type 3, deeply invading the appendix, which was resected R0 thanks to traction. It was intramucosal carcinoma on a strange SSAP lesion. So you can see here the strong traction on the appendix, and then we will dissect almost everything. But when traction becomes to be floppy and not so easy to go deeper, we can pull back the tightening loop of the ATTRACT device in order to stretch again the appendix and go deeper, and it's thanks to this very deep dissection of the appendix that we can reach higher, or we think we could reach higher rate of R0 resection thanks to this ability, because of strong traction, to go deeper into the appendix. Another case similar to the previous one, but with a big difference, because here the invasion of the appendix is not complete. It's a Toyo-Nagase 1, and it doesn't reach really the orifice or the entrance of the appendix. So it comes close, but it doesn't go into. and it changes a lot of things because in this case you can try to have an incision outside the appendix orifice, just close to the appendiceal edge. That makes probably the resection less risky compared to the resection where we should go very deep into the appendix. But nevertheless, it's not more easy, I think, because it's always very difficult to have a good injection, to find a good mucosal, submucosal layer close to the appendix, because the submucosa is very thin, fibrotic, or fatty, and not so easy to dissect. So you will see my incision is not very beautiful. It's tortuous, not very clean, not circular, because here it's difficult to push a lot on your knife, and it's difficult to have a strong, deep, homogeneous, and clean incision. But finally we could do it, and then we achieved the complete incision all around the lesion. By doing it thanks to the knife, which here is a dual knife. We inject again every time and achieve this complete incision. Then immediately after we will do the trimming, which is very important because you need to enlarge the space between your two edges of incision in order to create a space that will be more easy to respect when you will put the traction. If you have a very narrow area between the two edges of your incision, it will be very difficult to catch the edge of the lesion without catching the opposite side and without preventing the end of your resection. So spending some minutes to enlarge the space by a good trimming will help you to save a lot of time. So it's a very important point. Today it is the 10 years birthday of my last day in Japan with Saito Sensei, and really it's one of the things he learned to me, which is even now very important for me, is to do a good trimming, to enlarge the space in order to really begin ESD. It means really go under the mucosa and become to be stable in the submucosa. But before this, you have to do a very good incision, precise, deep, etc., but also a very good trimming to enlarge the space. And then, when you have done these two steps, it's more easy to fix your traction device, multipolar one in this case, with adaptive traction again, because if we need more traction, we will be able to tighten the device and increase the tension. And then here, in this case, without deep invasion of the appendix, it is a conventional ESD of the CCOM. We should be relatively cautious because the submucosa is not so large, we have a lot of fatty tissue, and therefore it's really important to go relatively slow. And when you find that submucosa is becoming floppy, here you can see that the space is not so large now. I should use again a lot my cap. It is feasible, but I will lose time because it's not very open. I can tighten the device, so the running loop will come and close all the points together. So you close the point and you once again increase a lot the tension, increase the exposure, make the remaining submucosa stretch a lot, and then you just have to cut a little, and the fibers spontaneously want to go because they are really tracked to the opposite side. So for me it's very, very important, whatever your expertise, to increase your exposure thanks to this kind of devices. Another example, more quickly, which is a case similar to the previous one with a deep invasion, but on the side of an appendectomy. So same strategy, 1 point of traction on the distal edge, 1 point of traction on the oral edge of the lesion, but here we are not waiting for a deep appendix to dissect because in fact there is a lot of fatty and scary tissue at the middle of the appendix because of the previous surgery with the staples or the wires of the surgeon. So here we fix it on the opposite wall of the colon, open the clip, fix it if possible on a fold. It's stronger than doing it on the conventional mucosa, and then release the clip and go back to do your cutting. But you will see what is really interesting here is the middle of the resection, because there is a moment where there is almost no layer, only scary tissue and fibrosis and fatty tissue. So you should be working with caution and very slowly, because sometimes you will have a kind of perforation at the middle, usually not really a free perforation in the peritoneum because everything is fixed by the fibrotic area, but sometimes we have to clip the area and to close it. In this case, we are not afraid of appendicitis because there is no more appendix, and therefore we can close all the area, all the resected area, without trying to let appendix open. So it's a little easier to close at the end. You will see it. So here my traction was not enough, or I need more, in fact, to be really safe and to improve the exposure in this kind of very difficult lesion. And therefore I almost always use a stronger traction, a tightened traction, in order to increase the space, increase the visibility, increase also the tension in the fibers of the submucosa. That means I will cut more fibers during every knife spike with the current, because all the fibers are compressed together because of traction. So really I don't think it's something only for difficult lesion, but for difficult lesion it is almost unavoidable for me to have traction at the minimum and strong traction with adaptive potential for many of these very difficult cases and very challenging one, where you really need to see the best you can and to increase the exposure and the space, because you are working in a very narrow area. So enlarging it thanks to traction is for me a very important point. And almost every cases we close this kind. The last case now, it was a lesion which was not circumferentially invading the appendix, but where it was not really easy to detect the margin of the lesion. So it was a Toyonaga type 3 or a type 2, but very deep. Nevertheless, it doesn't change the strategy. You have to remove the whole circumference of the appendix area. So it was like the first case we saw. We did a circumferential incision all around the appendix to make the edges of the specimen everywhere. We do your trimming in order to enlarge the space to place the traction device. Then we come with a very small forceps, a transnasal forceps, to put through the channel the device into the cecal area. We fix the first clip on the oral edge of the lesion in order to create a traction in the oral edge. then the second fixed point with a second clip in the anal edge or the opposite edge of the lesion, like this. We really work on it to avoid catching the opposite incision area, and then we fix the rubber band on the opposite wall of the colon by deflating and creating a strong traction. Probably I could, if I criticize, I could go further, a little more high in the cecum to have more traction from the beginning. It was not very strong in this case, but nevertheless it was possible to go into the area and to begin the appendiceal ESD. After, you should try to work all around the appendix in order to remove all the fibers that are behind it, in order to have all your traction at the end fixed, none on the submucosa, but only on the appendiceal area, and then progressively you will see the appendix going outside its hole and trying every time to turn around and cut the fibers all around the appendix. So it's a very slow game because for a small surface you have to work a lot and to spend a lot of time. So speed of resection, if you go very deep, are reducing, in fact, because the surface of the lesion is always the same, but you go deeper and deeper, and then you spend time. So speed is not very important in this case. The aim is to be R0, to go deeper in the submucosa and deeper in the appendix in order to avoid the incomplete resection because of deep invasion of the appendix. And because we don't know at all where the lesions stop, we have to go relatively deep in the appendix and stop when progression is almost impossible. So it was at this point, for me it was impossible to go deeper. Traction was enough. I didn't want to go very deep. I tried to increase the tension by tightening the device. I could win a little more, but not so much in this case because we were relatively deep. But nevertheless, we went to the loop to tighten the device. So now I'm working to try to dissect behind the lesion like this, but it begins to be difficult. I need a little more exposure. It's not so easy in this case. So finally, after working, trying to go deeper, finally I will try to tighten the device. Don't know when exactly, but it will come soon. You can see that we have almost one cap, so at least 1 centimeter of margin now. So I tried to go deeper, but it's not so effective now. We need more traction again. I'm beginning to go very close to the appendix mucosa, and the end of the ESD is needed. And at this moment, I try to dissect the distal edge, and unfortunately, a small hole happened. Very small. I think the size of the catheter is 2 millimeters, so it's really small hole. I think 1 or 2 millimeters only, but nevertheless there is a hole. So it's a kind of it's a small perforation. I think I didn't put in the video the tightening moment, but no worries. We did it to increase a little before. And finally, thanks to this traction, we could achieve the resection. Unfortunately, there is a small hole, which was not so deep, but in fact complete. Transmural 1, type 4, or a little of saline probably went into the cavity. So we're trying to suction front of it, and we close almost immediately, less than 1 minute later, the area with clips. I tried to use two at the two edges of the perforation to expose this area, and then to put a last clip really on the area with the normal mucosa around. My goal is to maintain appendix open, and that's why we try to put one tip of the clip into the appendix and the other one outside the resection area, in order to have both a closure and a stronger clipping, and both maintaining the appendix open, in order to avoid both appendicitis and mucosal, because you know that if you close completely the appendix, the risk is both the appendicitis immediately, but later also a kind of collection of fluid into the appendix, which is totally excluded from the CCOM. These are the new result thanks to adaptive traction. Only 44 cases with this adaptive traction from now, but we reach 91% of R0 resection instead of 82 in the recent cases with rubber band traction. The rate of perforation is not different, and the speed of resection is a little slower, but probably because we go very deep into the appendix and we have to dissect a lot into the appendix. I think we should spend time to reach this 91%, because we need to go deeper. Most of the non-R0 resection before were due to an invasion by the lesion on the appendix edge when we cut the appendix mucosa. But we will analyze more precisely in the next month which are the different R0. Is it in the deeper part of the appendix or not? And we will try to publish this data soon. In conclusion, traction for me is absolutely needed to do appendiceal lesion. It's almost impossible without it. Stronger traction makes it easier, I think, and allows us to reach higher rates of R0. And adaptive traction seems helpful to reach such a rate of curative resection, and is for me probably from now the best option. And we use adaptive traction for all appendiceal cases, and more generally for almost all cases, in fact, when we have it, but the nurse would do it. Soline has not enough time probably to do a lot of devices, so when we miss some devices, we keep it for difficult case, ileocecal valve, appendiceal, where really we think that it creates something new. It is a game changer for this difficult case like appendiceal lesion. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in ESD School, or in any training or any hands-on workshop. Please come to visit us if you want. The doors of our unit in Lyon are always open, like the doors are open in Jeremy's unit in Limoges, or in Timothée's one in Rennes or in Nancy. So please come to visit us and to see the nice thing we have in France outside ESD. Thank you very much.